I mentioned there are 4 guys that I have seen through the first 5. Now, today will be day 6 of BYU training camp that I think have really had nice showing so far. Will it translate where they see extended time this fall? That is obviously something that we'll have to gauge in the future. But they are 4 names that I absolutely think so far in training camp might be the unsung stars. And some of them are probably getting some pub in other publications or other podcasts. But they're the 4 names that I wanted to talk about today. And we're going to start off on the offensive side of the football. I mentioned in my tease that there was a guy that I had essentially written off thinking, you know what? He's probably had his time in the sun. It's just not going to come to fruition for him. That guy, Ethan Erickson. Yeah, that may sound like a blast from the past for some of you who are our most loyal listeners. Deep cut there. A guy, remember when he came in off of a mission, he played at Kahuku High School in Hawaii. 6'5", 230 pounds, looked every bit the part of just one of those tight ends that BYU routinely had brought in their history that had success in BYU's offense. Well, early on in his career, it looked like he was that quote-unquote heir apparent to Isaac Rex. I remember Aaron Roderick in multiple media sessions saying that this kid has got all of the tools to be the next star tight end for us at BYU. Now, what happened? Well, injuries happened. Ethan spent essentially all of last year, I think even beyond that, maybe it's been about a year and a half now, that he has dealt with numerous injury concerns. He is back out there in training camp right now, and I'm telling you, I keep looking at the tight end group, and I see this number 87 running down the field. I'm like, hold on. I've got my roster right here, actually. I can pull it up right as we're talking on the podcast. And I keep looking at my roster like, okay, 87. Oh, Ethan Erickson. He keeps running, he keeps getting opportunities with the first string offense. I know we've talked a lot about with the tight ends for Keanu Hill, Ryner Swanson, who was a guest on this podcast just yesterday. If you missed that conversation, go back and listen to it. I love Ryner. He's a great chat with that young man. You can tell he's highly motivated to contribute as a true freshman. But as it stands, Ethan Erickson, now he's listed as a redshirt junior, so he's been in the program for 4 years now for the BYU football program. But keep an eye on Ethan Erickson. 87, get to know that number because I'm telling you, he is running with the ones more often than I fully anticipated. He adds critical depth to a tight end unit. I think it's got a lot of depth to begin with because I think Mata Abataase, Jackson Bowers, Ray Paulo, along with the aforementioned Keanu Hill, Ryner Swanson, Anthony Olsen also in that mix. There's a lot of bodies in that tight end unit, and Aaron Roderick said they will travel as many as 6, maybe 8 tight ends with the travel squad this year. That is really cool to see. But Ethan Erickson, man, I'm stunned. Like I said, I kind of written him off with those injuries, thinking maybe it's his time has passed him by. Apparently not. And he looks polished right now. His body looks good. He looks fully healthy. And here's to a good run for him health-wise because he deserves it. Flipping over to the defense, Sione Moa. Now, those of you who are in our Locked On Cougars Insider group, a shameless plug to join us. I'm sending you guys updates via text message when I'm out there at practice. As soon as practice wraps up, I'm filling you in on everything I'm writing down on my notes. And Sione Moa has shown up in my notes every day we've been at training camp so far. We've been out there for 3 days, and every day I've written down Sione Moa's name. Now, Isaiah Moa was a star player in high school that BYU picked up as a 4-star prospect. It hasn't really worked to this point with Ice. Ice is making the transition to linebacker this year, but Sione Moa was a transfer from Utah State last year who was, I think, pretty lightly thought of in terms of his ability to contribute to BYU football. I'm telling you, so far in training camp, Sione Moa is one of the most impressive, if not the most impressive linebacker, not named Siale Acera for my money. Siale Acera is a household name at this point. I think Siale is on his way to starting for BYU, likely in that spot that Ben Bywater has vacated now that he is medically retired. But do not be surprised to see number 41 Sione Moa playing this fall. He has shown a really, really nice ability to shed blocks and make tackles in the backfield. I know they're not going fully to the ground right now in training camp, but the thud drills, he's showing well. In a 3-play sequence yesterday, and I feel bad for McKay Hillstead in this sequence because McKay Hillstead had a fumbled snap that was picked up, an interception by Sione Moa, and then essentially had the ball. He dropped back to pass and cocked his arm back to throw it down the field, and the ball popped out of his hand. It was wet. The rain had come through, and the ball popped out. And guess who pounced on it? Sione Moa. Sione Moa is shown to be a playmaker. So don't be surprised to see if he makes some noise this fall. And I'll tell you, I've been told by his family, speaking of Sione Moa's family, going back as far as last December, to keep an eye out for him. And he's making good on what they told me about him. Sticking with the defense, next guy up, Mory Bamba. Now, coming into training camp, Mory was a guy that, remember, when he came in from the junior college ranks, he was 6'3", 180 pounds, ran like a deer, and it felt like, okay, He's got all the physical tools to be an impact corner, because you can't teach 6'3" as a cornerback and have 4.4, 4.3 speed that he reportedly boasted coming into BYU. It never really has come to fruition so far for Mory Bamba. And there was a lot of thought going into training camp that it was Jakob Robinson and Mark Collins who are probably going to be the starting cornerback tandem for BYU. Well, so far in training camp, Mory Bamba has been the guy opposite Jakob Robinson at the outside corner spot. That's the impressive part about this. Mory still boasts that elite size. He said he packed on, I think I had a conversation with him, we're going to play later this week. I have to edit it up a little bit because I had a bit of a glitch with the rain going on, so I'll have to work on that. But Mory has said he has gained about 15 pounds. He looks like he's filled his frame out a little bit more, but he also pointed to the fact that Gennaro Guilford, as BYU's cornerbacks coach, has been critical to getting him up to speed to contribute for BYU right now. So keep an eye on Mory Bamba. He is finally, I think, coming into his own, and at long last, in many respects, because Mory's been here. I think he said this is his 4th year with the program. And it's crazy to think it's been that long already. But if he can finally pay off, to use that term, in terms of contributing on the field, potentially as a starting corner for the BYU defense, I think that would be a really, really cool story, because he has stuck with it through a lot of things, injury concerns, all kinds of stuff that he has dealt with during his time at BYU. But it's cool to see him getting his opportunity. And now Mark Collins, as I understand, has not been fully healthy all the way through training camp yet. So he's been limited in terms of his availability to contribute for BYU's defense. So I think it's still very much a battle for that corner job opposite Jakob Robinson. But right now, it's Mory Bamba's job to lose, and we'll see if he can hold on to it throughout the remainder of training camp. All right, the final guy I want to talk about on today's show in terms of guys that have stood out to me is flipping back over to the offense for a minute. Now, this is a name that is going to probably cause some of your heads to explode. Caleb Etienne. Yes, the guy who looked just completely lost at multiple points last season. Yes, I know that you're like, what are you talking about, Jake? You were as critical on him as almost anybody was. And I freely admit, I was hypercritical at times of BYU continuing to put Caleb Etienne out there in a situation where it felt like it was just an abject failure. What I have been told, what I have seen, what I have just absolutely enjoyed about Caleb Etienne this fall is he looks and sounds like a completely different player. He's back at left tackle for BYU. There's a lot of people that thought that Braden Kime was going to kick over from right tackle to left tackle. Caleb Etienne said, no, that's my spot. And he looks at home playing left tackle. BYU's had a really, really good run of late with their left tackles. Think about it. Brady Christensen, Blake Freeland, Kingsley Suamataia. All of them are now in the NFL. I'm not saying that they're going to go 4 for 4 now, because that seems like it's still a ways off to see if Caleb Etienne can really accomplish that. But he looks and sounds like a whole new player, and people around the program have expressed optimism that he is finally comfortable with what BYU is trying to run. He's not lost seemingly on every play out there. What I have observed watching him during the observation windows is this is a person, speaking of Caleb Etienne, who looks so much more comfortable doing what he's doing within the BYU offense. It took some time. It's taken a long time for him to really kind of get in and get ingrained with this BYU offense. But what a cool story that would be. Remember, this is a guy that routinely was missing blocks and looked completely lost on the field last season. What if that guy ended up becoming one of BYU's better offensive linemen this year? What a comeback story. What a turnaround story that would be to root for. I'm not saying it's absolutely going to happen, but the fact that he's been running exclusively as the #1 left tackle so far through training camp, I think that may tell you something, because TJ Woods came in and essentially wiped the slate clean and said everybody has to earn their jobs. And Caleb Etienne apparently has done enough to earn that trust so far in training camp. So those are the 4 names so far in training camp that I'm looking at that I've been impressed by. Ethan Erickson at tight end, Sione Moa at linebacker, Mory Bamba at cornerback, and Caleb Etienne at offensive tackle. And I'm sure there'll be more names to pop up, and I'll check in with you guys on a regular basis and share those names. But those are the ones, I guess, through essentially about a week's worth of camp that have stood out to me.